Well, Chris would be able to say if there is enough political support behind it, or if the Commission and staff really wants it. A white paper, if it does not end up being incorporated in a regulation or directive, can still become a soft law instrument at the least. So as a communication, this remains open. When it comes to the question of ordre public and balancing member states' rights and interest and the EU interest, it's true that even though under the white paper for the foreign subsidies, we do not find the question of ordre public, we still find the question of EU interest. So transaction may be stopped because the Commission appreciates that it doesn't defend enough the EU interest, although it could be understood by the member state as something beneficial to the member state where the transaction was to take place. And under that test, I don't see much of the member states interest in the balance test. But Chris will certainly have something interesting to say about this. Chris?
Yes, can you see me?
Yep.
I would suggest that Nikita stops sharing his screen so that we can have our speakers and maybe have a discussion on what was just presented. And I'm now putting also Pantelis on the screen as well, so that there is a clear discussion. Elenimo, I would suggest that you also switch on your screen.
I do switch on. Okay, good. Yeah, great.
So maybe a discussion about what was presented from everybody's viewpoint. And I think Nikita's raised some issues there that maybe Chris would like to address as well.
Absolutely. I think it was tremendous performance by all colleagues that presented their views about the white paper and how the concept of screening, the concept of monitoring of investment into the member states of the European Union can take effect. The white paper is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a white paper, and it's a matter of time to see if there's any traction, is any appetite on the part of the member states to move it into a green paper before it goes into a type of either a legal instrument as a directive or as a regulation. The European Union, the Commission, let's be clear, the Commission at the same time is very apprehensive of subsidies. Look at the big debate that we have between UK and the European Commission, a specific element of subsidization of industries. All of a sudden, subsidies, state aid in other words, became a kingpin of any potential competition issues within the market and outside the market. Imagine if a foreign country, imagine if a third country, through a sovereign fund, China, for example, let's be clear, comes into the single market through subsidized elements of investment, foreign investment, portfolio investment, contracts, procurement contracts, or partnerships. That creates a big debate about how you control the entry of the investment, how to monitor and also how you, as a European Union, as a collective of member states, you create an impact assessment for other players and other industries in that concept. In a short, very short expression, the white paper is the first step towards a kind of a joint approach towards subsidization. The screening of investment concerning FDI on public order and national security, it's here to stay. And the reason for that is because Europe is afraid of direct competition through other governments, through other federal systems, or through other sovereign systems. And also as a bridge point between the two regimes, the white paper and the regulation for screening of investments, is whether they're compatible, whether there could be some degree of convergence for the instrument of control, public order, national security, and also subsidization, which is an economic element of control of behavior of the marketplace. But overall, my colleagues presented magnificently their views and created a big discourse.
Thank you very much, Chris. Elenia, I think I would like to add that one should ponder on the outcome of the Brexit saga as to the finalization of the white paper principle, because the first litmus test of the application of a green paper and then discussion on a green paper will be the outcome of the discussions between Mr. Barnier and the UK team. So we should wait and see. It's only 21 days remaining. So I believe, Chris, that we should have another event in February so as to discuss on this.
Okay, one step back. If I understand well, third country for the purpose of the FDI is any country that has not concluded a customary union agreement. So Turkey has a customary union agreement. It's not a third country for the purposes of the FDI. So now we expect to see if UK will or will not be a third country for the purpose of those instruments, right? Okay, I'm a good student. Thanks. Okay. Okay.
That is correct. The biggest problem for the UK negotiations is whether it retains market access, specifically for trade, for investment, for services. Investment is a service. Don't forget that. The Cypriot Republic is geared towards receiving a lot of investment, but through services, also through capital investments, through other issues concerning, for example, the transactions for actual works, construction projects, for example. But mainly, it's the investment, the service portfolio or direct investment leading to control. And that will be the crunch point. For Turkey, Turkey was ready to join. If you remember last decade, they were opening their arms. And so when you're coming in, and that concept of pre-accession, they were shaking hands every time in Brussels. Is that when you're coming in, all of a sudden, look at where we are now. We have a cold, hot relationship, but still there's a customs union. There's a kind of market access. And well, we need to come to some sort of reality in the European Union about how you treat them. How you treat, for example, third countries that they are governing themselves behind that concept of custom union in order to masquerade for third country access. So we need to understand that concept.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any other comments that you would like to make before we proceed to the next part of the session? Eleni,
just one quick question. I was wondering how these instruments would have, what kind of impact we expect them to have on inward investments and freedom of capital. Because freedom of capital is understood as the freedom for EU investors to go abroad and for non-EU investors to come to Europe and invest as long as they do not take control. And the white paper discusses acquisitions in the EU where you do not take control. So minority rights, portfolio investments. Shouldn't be some more work on how to align the two, the freedom of capital and the white paper on foreign subsidies. What do you think, Chris? Should we expect the Court of Justice of Luxembourg to shift this case law even beyond what we know? It's true that now we have 2-3 pending cases on funds and fund investments before the European Court of Justice that relate to funds activities and investment, but beyond the very narrow tax-wise micro discussions I may have on a broader spotlight. How do you see it?
Minority investment is a good opportunity to open somebody's market and doesn't create issue for potential scrutiny or potential question mark concerns. Problem is control. And control, I mentioned before, control as a concept of company law rests on the member state, on the legal order of the member state. When you realize that there's a control, when, for example, certain jurisdictions have a very clever device that even the minority shareholder, the portfolio investor, very cleverly can stop directions. You can create, for example, a different discourse into the strategic direction of a company. However, control is different. Control means you can stop participating in the sector, or you can completely change the whole dynamic of the sector. Look what happens in the United States. Look at what happens in, for example, in the United Kingdom, in England. There's a company called Huawei. They're pioneering generation 5 of mobile telephony. Great. Everywhere else in the world, their top agenda for converting generation 4 to generation 5. All of a sudden, the United Kingdom realized that they pose a potential threat to national security because of data, protocol of data, and also links with the ownership towards the sovereign fund of China. And guess what? They gave them 5 years and said, please exit the United Kingdom and leave your assets. In the United States, TikTok, major asset for any sort of social media, as a kind of a massive appetite for takeover or divesting from that company because of certain connections with the Chinese government. So that's the issue, portfolio versus control investment, which is FDI, basically attention of the European Commission on the framework of screening.
Great.